There's a particular kind of mind that operates like a chess master, always thinking several moves ahead, seeing patterns where others see chaos, and finding connections that remain invisible to most. These are the INTJ minds, the architects of thought, the strategic visionaries who inhabit a world of endless possibility and systematic analysis. They don't just think about problems. They deconstruct them, rebuild them, and examine them from angles that others never consider. But what exactly makes these individuals such profound thinkers? And why does their mental landscape seem so different from everyone else's? When you encounter an INTJ, you might notice they have this way of looking at you as if they're reading between the lines of everything you say. They're not being judgmental or superior. They're simply processing information at multiple levels simultaneously. Their minds work like sophisticated filtering systems, taking in raw data and transforming it into comprehensive frameworks of understanding. They see the world not as it appears on the surface, but as an intricate web of systems, patterns, and underlying principles waiting to be discovered. The INTJ brain operates on what psychologists call abstract sequential processing. This means they naturally gravitate toward theoretical concepts and organize information in logical, systematic ways. While most people think in linear sequences, moving from point A to point B, INTJ think in networks. They create mental maps where every piece of information connects to multiple other pieces, forming complex webs of understanding that allow them to see implications and possibilities that escape others entirely. This cognitive architecture manifests in fascinating ways. An INTJ doesn't just learn facts, they build internal models of how things work. When they encounter new information, they don't simply memorize it, they integrate it into their existing framework, adjusting and refining their understanding until everything fits together in a coherent whole. It's like they're constantly building and rebuilding a mental cathedral, where every new piece of knowledge must find its proper place in the grand design. Their thinking process is deeply introverted, meaning they prefer to work through ideas internally before sharing them with the world. This isn't shyness or insecurity, it's a fundamental preference for mental solitude. INTJ need space to think, to process, to allow their minds to wander through the labyrinth of possibilities that every situation presents. They're not antisocial, they're selective about when and how they engage their mental resources. What makes INTJ thinking particularly distinctive is their natural inclination toward what researchers call future-oriented cognition. They don't just think about what is, they think about what could be, what should be, and what will be if current trends continue. Their minds are constantly running scenarios, testing hypotheses, and imagining alternative outcomes. This forward-thinking orientation makes them natural strategists and visionaries, capable of seeing potential problems and opportunities long before they become apparent to others. The intuitive function in INTJ operates like a sophisticated pattern recognition system. They pick up on subtle cues, underlying themes, and emerging trends that others miss entirely. It's not mystical or supernatural. It's their brain's remarkable ability to process vast amounts of information subconsciously and present insights that seem to come from nowhere. They might suddenly understand the real motivation behind someone's behavior or predict how a situation will unfold, not through logical deduction, but through this intuitive pattern matching that operates below the level of conscious awareness. This intuitive processing combines with their thinking preference to create what many describe as strategic intelligence. INTJ don't just solve problems, they solve problems efficiently and elegantly. They look for the simplest solution that addresses the root cause rather than just treating symptoms. They're natural systems thinkers who understand that changing one element in a complex system can have ripple effects throughout the entire structure. Their judging preference adds another layer to their cognitive complexity. INTJ like closure, completion, and resolution. They don't enjoy leaving things open-ended or ambiguous. This drives them to think things through to their logical conclusions, to build complete mental models rather than partial sketches. They want to understand not just how something works, but why it works that way, and what would happen if you changed various components. This need for closure combined with their intuitive insights creates an interesting paradox. INTJ are comfortable with abstract possibilities and theoretical concepts, but they want to organize these abstractions into coherent, logical frameworks. They can hold multiple contradictory ideas in their minds simultaneously while working toward a synthesis that resolves the apparent contradictions. The depth of INTJ thinking also stems from their natural skepticism toward conventional wisdom. They don't accept things simply because that's how they've always been done. Instead, they question assumptions, challenge established procedures, and look for better ways of doing things. This isn't rebelliousness for its own sake. It's an intellectual honesty that demands evidence and logical consistency. Their minds operate like research laboratories, constantly running experiments, testing theories, and refining their understanding. They're not satisfied with surface-level explanations. They want to understand the underlying principles, the fundamental mechanisms that drive observable phenomena. This intellectual curiosity pushes them to dig deeper than most people are willing or able to go. INTJ also possess what psychologists call high need for cognition. They genuinely enjoy thinking for its own sake. While many people find complex mental tasks draining or frustrating, INTJ find them energizing and rewarding. They're drawn to puzzles, problems, and challenges that require sustained mental effort. They can spend hours, days, or even years working through complex theoretical problems simply because the process of thinking is intrinsically satisfying to them. This cognitive orientation affects how they process emotions as well. INTJ don't ignore feelings, but they approach them analytically. They want to understand their emotions, to figure out where they come from and what they mean. They treat their internal emotional landscape like another system to be understood and optimized. This can sometimes make them seem detached or cold, but it's actually a form of emotional intelligence, albeit one that operates through analysis rather than direct experience. Their thinking style also influences their communication patterns. INTJ prefer precision over charm, substance over style. They choose their words carefully, aiming for accuracy rather than social lubrication. This can sometimes create communication challenges because they expect others to engage with ideas at the same level of depth and precision that comes naturally to them. The INTJ mind is also characterized by what researchers call high tolerance for ambiguity combined with strong drive for closure. They can work comfortably with incomplete information and uncertain outcomes while simultaneously pushing toward clarity and resolution. They understand that complex problems often require extended periods of uncertainty before solutions emerge, and they're willing to sit with that discomfort while their minds work through the complexities. This combination of traits creates individuals who are natural architects of ideas, capable of designing comprehensive solutions to complex problems. They don't just think deeply about narrow topics. They think systematically about how different domains of knowledge connect and influence each other. They see the big picture not as a vague overview, but as a detailed map of interconnected systems and relationships. Their thinking process is both disciplined and creative, logical and intuitive, systematic and innovative. They can follow rigorous analytical procedures while remaining open to unexpected insights and novel approaches. This cognitive flexibility allows them to tackle problems from multiple angles and develop solutions that are both theoretically sound and practically effective. What emerges from this cognitive architecture is a distinctive form of intelligence that values depth over breadth, quality over quantity, and understanding over mere information. INTJ don't just accumulate knowledge, they transform it into wisdom through their unique capacity for deep, systematic, strategic thinking. The way INTJ process information resembles an invisible symphony playing in their minds, where every note of data finds its place in a larger composition that others rarely hear. They don't just collect thoughts like souvenirs. They weave them into tapestries of meaning that reveal hidden connections between seemingly unrelated concepts. When an INTJ sits quietly in a meeting, appearing detached or distant, their mind is actually orchestrating multiple levels of analysis simultaneously, connecting what's being said to broader patterns they've observed across time and context. This mental orchestration operates through what cognitive scientists recognize as highly developed working memory, coupled with exceptional pattern synthesis abilities. Their brains don't just store information in isolated compartments. They create dynamic networks where new insights can trigger cascading revelations across multiple domains of knowledge. It's like watching dominoes fall, except each falling piece reveals another layer of understanding, rather than simply completing a predetermined sequence. The INTJ thinking process unfolds in waves rather than straight lines. They might appear to jump from topic to topic in conversation, but these apparent leaps actually follow invisible threads of logic that connect disparate ideas through underlying principles. Their minds naturally seek these deeper structural similarities, finding common frameworks that unite seemingly different phenomena. They see how the principles governing market dynamics might mirror those in evolutionary biology, or how patterns in historical conflicts reveal universal truths about human nature. This capacity for cross-domain thinking creates what many describe as their uncanny ability to predict outcomes and see around corners. They're not fortune tellers or mystics. They're pattern detectors who have trained their minds to recognize recurring themes across different contexts. When they warn about potential problems or suggest alternative approaches, they're drawing on this vast internal database of patterns and precedents that most people never consciously notice. Their intellectual independence runs deeper than mere contrarianism or rebelliousness. INTJ possess what researchers call epistemic autonomy, meaning they need to understand things for themselves rather than accepting external authorities as final arbiters of truth. They don't reject expertise or knowledge, but they insist on processing it through their own analytical frameworks before integrating it into their worldview. This creates individuals who are simultaneously well-informed and fiercely independent in their thinking. The solitary nature of INTJ cognition often gets misinterpreted as aloofness or arrogance, but it's actually a fundamental requirement for their type of deep processing. Their minds work best when freed from the constant interruptions and social demands that characterize most modern environments. They need extended periods of uninterrupted mental space to allow their thoughts to percolate, connect, and synthesize into the comprehensive insights for which they're known. This need for cognitive solitude doesn't mean they're antisocial or misanthropic. Rather, they're highly selective about when and how they engage their mental resources. Social interaction, while valuable, requires them to operate in real-time response mode, which can interfere with the deeper, slower processes that generate their most profound insights. They prefer conversations that allow for pauses, reflection, and the kind of thoughtful exchange that honors the complexity of important topics. Their thinking style also manifests in an unusual relationship with time. While most people experience time linearly, moving from past through present toward future, INTJ seem to inhabit multiple temporal dimensions simultaneously. They can hold historical context, present circumstances, and future implications in their minds at once, creating a kind of temporal parallax that reveals insights invisible to more linear thinkers. This temporal complexity affects how they approach decision-making. INTJ don't just consider immediate consequences. They think in terms of second-order effects, unintended consequences, and long-term implications that might not manifest for years or decades. They're natural long-term thinkers who can sacrifice short-term gains for strategic advantages that others might never perceive. Their analytical depth also extends to human psychology and social dynamics. INTJ often develops sophisticated models of human behavior that allow them to understand motivations, predict reactions, and navigate complex interpersonal situations with remarkable precision. They study people the same way they study any other complex system, looking for underlying patterns and governing principles that explain observable behaviors. This psychological insight, combined with their strategic thinking abilities, makes them formidable in situations requiring long-term planning or complex problem-solving. They can anticipate how different stakeholders will respond to various scenarios, identify potential points of resistance or support, and develop approaches that account for the full spectrum of human variables involved in any given situation. The INTJ mind also demonstrates remarkable intellectual courage. They're willing to follow their reasoning wherever it leads, even when the conclusions challenge popular beliefs or their own previous assumptions. This intellectual honesty requires them to constantly examine and refine their own thinking, creating a kind of internal quality control system that maintains the accuracy and coherence of their mental models. Their approach to knowledge acquisition resembles that of master craftsmen, who understand that true expertise requires patience, persistence, and attention to subtle details that others overlook. They don't just want to know what works, they want to understand why it works, under what conditions it works best, and what might cause it to fail. This depth of understanding allows them to adapt their knowledge to novel situations and generate creative solutions that others miss. The combination of these cognitive traits creates individuals who think in architectures rather than fragments, who see symphonies where others hear noise, and who can hold the complexity of the world in their minds without being overwhelmed by it. They don't just process information, they transform it into understanding through their unique capacity for deep, systematic, visionary thinking that reveals the hidden order underlying apparent chaos. Perhaps most remarkably, the INTJ mind possesses what could be called conceptual gravitational pull. Ideas don't simply enter their consciousness and remain static. They begin orbiting around central themes, gathering related concepts like planets collecting debris from space. This mental magnetism creates dense clusters of interconnected understanding that can suddenly collapse into breakthrough insights when enough conceptual mass has accumulated. Their thinking operates through what cognitive researchers recognize as recursive abstraction. They take concrete experiences, extract abstract principles, then apply those principles to generate new concrete possibilities. It's like having a mental refinery that processes raw experience into increasingly purified forms of understanding, each iteration revealing deeper truths about underlying structures and relationships. This abstraction process creates an unusual relationship with creativity. While many people associate creativity with spontaneous inspiration or artistic expression, INTJ creativity emerges from systematic exploration of possibility spaces. They don't just imagine alternatives, they architect them according to logical principles and structural constraints. Their innovations often appear sudden to observers, but they emerge from extensive internal development processes that can span months or years. The depth of their processing also manifests in what might be called conceptual archaeology. When encountering complex problems, they don't just look at surface manifestations. They excavate through layers of causation to uncover root sources and fundamental dynamics. They understand that addressing symptoms without understanding underlying causes creates temporary fixes that often generate new problems elsewhere in the system. Their minds naturally organize information into hierarchical frameworks, where specific details nest within broader categories, which themselves exist within even more comprehensive organizing principles. This creates a kind of mental filing system where every piece of information has multiple addresses, allowing for rapid cross-referencing and unexpected connections between seemingly unrelated domains. This organizational tendency extends to their approach to learning itself. INTJ don't accumulate random facts or skills. They build integrated knowledge structures where each new element strengthens and expands the existing architecture. They're natural curriculum designers who understand how different areas of knowledge reinforce and illuminate each other when properly sequenced and connected. Their thinking style also demonstrates remarkable persistence in the face of complexity. While many people become overwhelmed or frustrated when problems resist quick solutions, INTJ seem to thrive in these challenging intellectual environments. They possess what psychologists call high tolerance for cognitive load, meaning they can hold multiple complex variables in their minds simultaneously without losing track of the overall structure they're trying to understand. This cognitive endurance allows them to work through problems that require extended periods of mental effort and sustained attention to subtle details. They can spend weeks or months refining their understanding of complex phenomena, gradually building more accurate and comprehensive models through iterative cycles of analysis, synthesis, and testing. Their relationship with uncertainty also sets them apart from many other thinking styles. While uncertainty makes many people uncomfortable, INTJ seem to find it intellectually stimulating. They understand that genuine complexity often requires extended periods of not knowing before deeper patterns become visible. They're willing to sit with questions that don't have immediate answers, allowing their minds to work through problems at a pace that honors the difficulty of what they're trying to understand. This comfort with uncertainty combines with their systematic approach to create what might be called strategic patience. They understand that rushing toward premature conclusions often prevents the kind of deep understanding they seek. They're willing to invest significant time and mental energy in problems because they know that surface-level solutions rarely address the fundamental issues that interest them most. The INTJ mind also demonstrates exceptional skill at what researchers call cognitive perspective taking. They can mentally simulate different viewpoints, understanding how various stakeholders might perceive the same situation differently based on their unique contexts, constraints, and objectives. This isn't empathy in the emotional sense, but rather analytical empathy that allows them to build more complete models of complex social and organizational dynamics. Their thinking process often involves what could be described as mental experimentation. They create hypothetical scenarios, test different variables, and explore potential outcomes without needing to implement their ideas in the physical world. This allows them to rapidly prototype solutions and identify potential problems before committing resources to particular approaches. This experimental orientation extends to their self-understanding as well. INTJ often treat their own development as an ongoing research project, systematically exploring their capabilities, identifying areas for improvement, and designing personal development strategies that align with their long-term objectives. They approach self-optimization with the same analytical rigor they apply to external problems. So when you encounter an INTJ lost in thought, remember that you're witnessing something rare and valuable in our fast-paced world. Their minds don't just process information, they transform it into architectural blueprints for understanding reality itself. They remind us that true depth isn't about knowing more, it's about seeing further, connecting deeper, and thinking with the kind of precision that turns chaos into clarity. In a world that often rewards quick responses over thoughtful ones, perhaps we all need a little more of that INTJ patience with complexity, that willingness to sit with difficult questions until real understanding emerges. Because sometimes the most profound insights come not from thinking faster, but from thinking deeper than anyone else dares to go.